Good afternoon. I would like to start my speech by saying a few thank yous. I would like to thank several senior representatives of the political scene to be here. I think it's great that they're here because this is intended to be a platform, and I think it will be a very exciting one. I see this as a key moment for the art sector in Guernsey, and I thank you for being here. It's really good that you answered that call. Same thank you to the prominent members of the business community, to Chamber for the foresight to hosting events like this, but also same thank you for the members of the art community, because you're here, in numbers, key stakeholders, artists of all sorts, and it's great that you also stepped up and answered that call. So very briefly, I will tell you a little bit about Art for Guernsey, and then how we met and how we had this idea to collaborate with our friends of ArtHouse Jersey. And then I will introduce Galina and Matt, and Galina will deliver a speech on how they see the world in Jersey and how we could be inspired by some of the achievements. In some topics, they're much better than us. And so I felt inspired to listen and take notice. I think they feel the same as well. There are certain things we do better. And so it's a very exciting partnership. And then when Galina is done, I will explain to you in practical terms what is the project that we will be running. So most of you are familiar with Art for Guernsey. We are a locally based charity. We've been running for 7 years. We have about 75 events and exhibitions behind us, and we just opened our new gallery in the Old Quarter. We have 4 pillars: exhibition, education, community, and last but not the least, cultural diplomacy. Today, I'm talking exclusively about cultural diplomacy, which is nothing else than creating or improving the perception that people have of us abroad. I've never lived in a place that I love so much than Guernsey. I've never lived in a place that is so badly perceived than Guernsey abroad, while it's so great inside. So it makes sense to try to address that, following all avenues, including the political ones, the economic ones, but the soft power of culture. So far, very briefly, at our modest level, we managed to show the cliffs and the natural beauty of Guernsey within the 2 European parliaments, within Buckingham Palace. We had a lot of prime time coverage when artists come and find inspiration here and they go back and they become an ambassador in their own countries, magazine coverage of all sorts, and also some very exciting projects with the ambassadors of Costa Rica and Czech Republic. And that is not to mention the Renoir exhibition that is coming up to Guernsey. That is going to be a great thing for the Guernsey brand in partnership with the Giverny Museum and the Guernsey Museums. We have lenders from all over the world, not the least the National Gallery and Musée d'Orsay, signing a piece of paper, pretty much saying that they see fit to be our partners. Well, how great is that in terms of improving how we are perceived in the world? We're twinning the Giverny as a small town with one of our parishes. We will organize school exchange, etc., etc. So that's my little bit about cultural diplomacy. Everybody is doing it. All the countries, 200 plus countries, positively or negatively. Yesterday, Putin was in a Ukrainian city, and guess what? He opened an art center for children. Why? Because he's trying to address this negative image with culture. Positive example, Finland in the 1950s. They found themselves with 2,000 kilometers of borders with Soviet Union, a lot of snow, a lot of forest, nothing going their way. So what did they do? They created a collection. They sent that collection abroad, everywhere, so they could tell the story about them. Did it save the day? Of course not. Did it help? Greatly. So I would like to tell you a few anecdotes about how we met with our friends of ArtHouse Jersey. And there is a key asset, actually, that unifies us, is the Bureau des Îles Anglo-Normandes, an agency that we are both paying and who is representing our interest in France. Those guys in the shadow are doing a great job. So they invited organizations like ourselves to go to Rennes in Brittany to take a field trip. And for 2 or 3 days, we visited 7, 8 museums and galleries. And despite the fact that those organizations are much bigger than us, they were really open door to work with us. Now, I found myself on a boat with a few of the guys of ArtHouse Jersey. I think by the end of the Condor trip, we decided to work together. Now, why? Because we feel like-minded, we feel entrepreneurial, we feel passionate about our own island. But also, I was so impressed that they managed to convince their own government to commit £500,000 to cultural diplomacy. And they have a matrix to measure impact and target, and it's smart. Of course, it makes sense. I mean, Jersey, you guys don't have somebody as able as Jonathan here in the room, so you guys got in trouble with the fishing right and the French, right? They thought Boris Johnson was making the call, and guess what? He wasn't. So, of course, you have a bit more work than us to do, right, to make good with the French. But nevertheless, it makes perfect sense. And so a second exciting thing, they are a public arm. We are totally private. So, and we kind of like, oh, you do that so well, oh, you do that so well. And we feel very complementary while different. So they add to our diversity and vice versa. That is very exciting. Then also, very funny, the next morning after a very nice evening together, polishing up the details of our collaboration, then we turn up and we visit those museums in Rennes. And guess what? Without not giving justice to the people in Rennes, they don't really know, you know, Jersey, Guernsey, yeah, you guys are in the sea somewhere, you know. We were perceived like colleagues. And then it's another reason why, hold on a second, of course we have our differences, of course we have different interests, but there is a majority there of how we are perceived that is actually Channel Island perceived. And you know, you are very aware in this room that prominent politicians and business leaders have called for more collaboration. And we felt that collaborating together, and I will explain the terms after Galina, makes a lot of sense, it's very exciting. But we also felt that why don't we set a benchmark in all humility for the art to showcase an intelligent and non-competitive collaboration so that we can put it out there. But of course, I'll give you the details after Galina's speech, and I will tell you how exciting it is for the artist, of course. So on that note, thank you, Matt, for being in the room, and I would like Galina to come and join us and deliver her side of the story. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for coming out on a rainy day. I guess they're not that unusual, but anyways, we came up the hill after having a tour of the fabulous new gallery that Art for Guernsey has just opened on Mansell Street. So if you haven't been there, I encourage all of you to go down. Absolutely fantastic, fantastic space. And Matt, who is here with me, the executive director of ArtHouse Jersey, we were frantically taking notes and photographs of things that we might be able to try back in Jersey in the spaces that we manage. So, my name is Galina Liu. I'm the vice chair of ArtHouse Jersey. It's a registered charity in Jersey, and absolutely delighted to be here to be talking about this collaboration. A fantastic opportunity. We really appreciate the invitation to come and to speak to all of you about this. So ArtHouse Jersey, our mission is to serve our island community and international audiences by supporting artists from Jersey and across the world to create ambitious work. It's a bit of a mouthful to say, but really, at our core, we are a production company that is focused on the creation of original art. And we support artists in Jersey and beyond Jersey shores to create art that speaks to the community, can bring the community together. And in some cases, we're also fortunate to be able to then share those creations beyond our shores as we tour around Europe and other jurisdictions, all right? So I think, as David has alluded to, our funding from government has actually increased quite significantly over the last few years. And that's something that we've been working at very hard and very fortunate in being able to secure that. We have a team of about 14 people. We operate out of 3 different sites. Our budget this year will be £1.7 million, and about 2/3 of that is essentially an investment from government to ensure that the arts and the creativity and the innovation that comes along with the practice and engagement with arts is actually part of the long-term strategic vision for Jersey. We offer a very wide-ranging program of work throughout the year. It involves both artist development and commissioning of work. And we actually work across all the disciplines, all the different artistic disciplines. So whether it's visual, performing arts, dance, music, we try to have broad engagement because we recognize that the public that we serve have a very broad spectrum of interests and tastes. And so it's very important to us as a registered charity to be able to have an offering that can appeal to as broad an audience as possible. Our partnership with Art for Guernsey and David, I mean, you've heard a lot about the detail and the camaraderie that actually builds up when you're stuck on a ferry for a few hours, hopefully not in a storm. But, you know, I think that we do have a shared view. We have a shared view about the power and the transformative nature of art. Art is one of those things that, you know, every single child is born with an innate sense of curiosity and wonder. And it's how we as human beings learn to comprehend what is around us. And, you know, many different people will say that you know, we're born as these amazing, amazing creatures that are open to all kinds of exploration. And then, you know, by the time we leave school, we've kind of had that all beaten out of us, right? So, but anyways, I mean, it really is about how art can transform, not at just a personal level. So there's more and more data now emerging that says art is actually a key and fundamental part of health and well-being, and that it helps us to process things. It helps us to process experiences. It offers us ways to see things in a different light. It helps us to understand that there may be different perspectives out there and not just our own. And it does it in a way that is engaging and can be fun, and actually isn't viewed as some kind of educational kind of sitting in front of a lecture kind of experience, right? So that's very, very important to understand about art. For the economy generally, and for business, and I recognize that many of you here are from the business community, there is also a developing understanding about the link of things like art, things that improve health and well-being in terms of productivity. And so from the Channel Islands perspective, you know, we're always looking at our populations and our demographic profile. And I think that Jersey and Guernsey are quite similar in the sense that we both have aging populations. And there's always this, underlying concern about how can we actually ensure that the future continues to be prosperous, continues to be sustainable. How do we attract people to be able to become more productive? How do we attract people to find this place attractive and exciting to be in? Well, art is one of those things that will help. It's one of the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle because it makes a place more exciting and more vibrant. And happier and mentally more healthy employees are actually more productive. And that is also something that is now emerging from the data. Just as one of those data points, in the UK, there is, in 2021, the data says that the creative arts contributed about £109 billion, or 5.6% of the economy in 2021. And despite the pandemic and all of the ramifications of the pandemic, actually that sector was less adversely affected than many of the other economic sectors. So that means that it's resilient, right? There is resiliency there. So something else to perhaps think about as you look at all of the opportunities around and where arts might be a place to put your support dollars, if you will. And then the other aspect, of course, is that art can support education and the development of skills, perhaps in a way that is very profound for students. And a major area of focus for ArtHouse Jersey is actually in this area. We really identify young people as a key audience to work with. So, for example, in our Map of Wonders project, we reached about 10,000 students last year, and that involved about 70,000 hours of engagement with the children and about 2,500 hours of teacher development. And so art can be used in these kinds of very practical ways, really, to deliver part of the education curriculum. Now, in terms of processing experiences, another example of that is our Forget-Me-Nots sort of exhibit, where we realized that children were having quite a lot of trouble processing the pandemic experience and the lockdown, being away from their friends, being away from the classroom. And so the Forget-Me-Not exhibit was really about giving children an opportunity to create a flower, to write down some words, to share some of their feelings in a recording, and then to actually showcase all of that in an exhibit where people were able to walk through and really be able to understand, hear, and sense what children had gone through, their experience of the pandemic. And so, again, another way to help people process and hopefully help them cope with a very sort of difficult and unexpected experience in their young lives. There is actually a demand for the skills that are associated with engagement in the arts. So in the World Economic Forum's 2020 Future of Jobs report, 4 out of 5 of the top skills that were listed as having growing importance and demand for the future are related to creativity and innovation. And that's not surprising because those of you who may have been engaged in the educational sort of philosophy will have come across the term STEM, which is really about encouraging students, primarily girls, actually, about a decade and a half ago, to really embrace some of what might have been called the hardcore subjects, science and math and technical disciplines, engineering. Now, it has now come to pass that STEM is kind of passé now, right? really, STEM needs to be complemented with a holistic appreciation for being human. And so now STEM has become STEAM, right? STEAM, and the A obviously standing for arts. And why is that there? Because there is a link between arts and the so-called softer skills of being able to problem solve, being able to be more collaborative, perhaps being better at critical thinking and analysis. And so now, instead of just promoting STEM, the conversation now in educational circles is moving towards STEAM, ensuring that there is a balance. This is particularly important, perhaps, as we are all coming to grips in the general public with artificial intelligence and the sort of how artificial intelligence is immersed in all of our daily lives, perhaps without us even knowing it. Are we asking the right questions about that? It turns out that if you are engaging in artistic activity, you are perhaps, your brain is perhaps wired slightly differently and able to ask some of those very important questions. So a little bit of background behind the funding that we have from the government of Jersey. This really stems from a decision that was taken by the States Assembly in 2019. And in 2019, the government of, the States Assembly decided that they would allocate 1% of the total annual budget to arts, culture, and heritage. So that translates into roughly £8 million of investment in this area on an annual basis. And so that is really the basis of the funding that we have been able to secure from the government. And the long-term vision that is associated with that, why did our States Assembly choose to do that? They chose to do that because there is a long-term vision in our strategy where the government really wants Jersey to be known internationally as a creative island that positions art at its core. So we're very, very fortunate to be able to have that support. It's not a donation, right? So it's very important to understand that this is an investment by government. And it's our job as one of the arts organizations in Jersey that receives this funding to be able to demonstrate that we are providing social benefit to islanders. We couldn't actually be talking about this without acknowledging the fact that we have a minister, Deputy Kirsten Morell, who had responsibility in this area in the previous government, has retained that responsibility. And this continuity is really, really important because I think, as most of you understand, it's very difficult to entrench and even change things within one political cycle. So having continuity across a couple and hopefully more political cycles will make a difference. And I guess I won't go into more of the detail around the collaboration because David will be doing that. I might just point out that we do have quite similar visions between ArtHouse Jersey and Art for Guernsey. But we also have differences. And those differences are very important because it allows us to benefit from different ways of thinking. And that's where we're very, very excited because we think that not only is this an exciting partnering opportunity, it's also an exciting learning opportunity for ArtHouse Jersey, and we're very much looking forward to that. We have managed to secure the confidence of government, but we have much to learn because obviously Art for Guernsey has been very successful in securing private funding. We do have some private funding, but that's something that we could learn from. How do you do it here? And that's something that we hope we will learn from that. We also think that this broader platform of a collaboration is going to ensure that the work that comes out of this is going to reach a broader audience. And that is also very, very important. And finally, I'd say that this collaboration is perhaps of an example of how the islands could work together to perhaps shape a slightly different narrative about the Channel Islands as a whole. I think, as you heard David mention before, when people are looking in, they don't necessarily see Guernsey, Jersey, Alderney. They don't necessarily see them as individual islands. They see us as a group of islands, and they see us as the Channel Islands. And that's to the extent that they've heard of us at all, right? Because these are pretty small islands. So there's a benefit there in having a stronger voice if we can work together, combine the voices. And from a global perspective, there is so much more that the world ought to celebrate and treasure about the Channel Islands as a group. And that the art that we think we are going to produce together and showcase together is going to be one of those topics of conversation. So a more unified, coherent, and stronger voice on the global stage. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn it back to David now.
Very nice, thank you. It's great to hear how you see the world, and that's what this platform is supposed to be. So, concretely, what are we going to do? What we decided to do is both organizations have a successful track record in terms of making calls to artists, locally or abroad. So, sometime around mid-April or late April, ArtHouse Jersey and Art for Guernsey will jointly make a call to the outside world to artists who are inspired by the Channel Island. So, of course, that means the artists who live in the Channel Islands, but also the artists who come and go to the Channel Islands. And I would like to refer to an art history walk that we did together with our friends of the Guernsey Museum in preparation of the Renoir exhibition. At the very end of the 19th century, the Channel Islands were known like one of the most beautiful places in the world. Consistently. No EasyJet, no British Airways, so you go to the Channel Island. And people were taking the tour to the Channel Islands, like they did in the 18th century, that they did a grand tour to Italy. I have a book at home that refers 1,200 artists since the 19th century who lived here or came to visit here. That is the starting point of our collaboration and of the call that we will put out there, who has been inspired by the Channel Islands. So we will select the artists, I think a great number of them, and we will finalize the selection by mid-May, so that we can have residencies in Jersey and in Guernsey on a non-competitive basis and rotate those artists so that nobody can say that they had better artists than the others, and we equally expose the artists to both islands so that we give them an expanded, inspiration. The artworks that they will produce will constitute an exhibition that we will brand the Channel Island Collection. And we will see the first artworks coming our way at the end of the summer, in September. And then that will be a very good timing because, as some senior politicians know in the room, there is an important political summit taking place on Guernsey soil around mid-September, where the senior representative of La Manche and Normandy and Jersey and Guernsey will meet to talk about the wider good. And we would love the opportunity to host that summit in our new gallery. and also surrender the politicians by the early artworks that will be produced for the very purpose of promoting the Channel Islands abroad. Then by mid-January 2024, the show will start to be curated in Jersey for 6 weeks, and then in the newly open gallery of ArtHouse Jersey. They happen to have a new gallery. And then by early March, we will curate the show on Guernsey soil in the gallery in the Old Quarter for another 6 weeks. So that means that by mid-April 2024, the collection will be available to go abroad and represent ourselves. We have received very strong expression of interest from major museums in Rennes or in Normandy. But also we have, as you know, a representative office in Brussels representing our interest jointly to the European Commission. And we have been in dialogue with them and also with the political forces to send the show to Brussels. And personally, I would like that show to be curated within the European Parliament in Brussels. We've done that before. There's no reason why we're not going to do it this time. And everybody feels pretty excited about that. At Art for Guernsey, and it is the same for ArtHouse Jersey, we like to care about our artists. And one thing that any artist loves is to be in a museum at some point. In the context of the Renoir project, I didn't want to put you on the spot, Paul, but Paul is doing a wonderful work for us with a 19th century camera trying to capture the light as Renoir thought it wasn't possible. And well, he's going to be in both museums, in Guernsey and in Giverny. So those are the opportunities along the road that we will create for the artist exhibiting in that Channel Island collection. And the moment we have a collection, we can send it abroad. The concept is, pre-COVID, we were in discussion with Visit Guernsey, and I personally think that every time that Aurigny opens a new route to a new destination, of course we need a bit of marketing, but I think that we should send a collection to kind of curate in the new destination. Doesn't matter if it's Paris or Dublin or Rennes, and actually showcase the beauty of Guernsey or Jersey and promote ourselves that way. So I'll stop here, but I think that this is an interesting and important moment for the arts in Guernsey and Jersey. That project will create multiple opportunities for the people of the arts sector to step up. But I really, really welcome as well the support that we receive from the business community. Very senior people are like, create that example so that we can have the benchmark because we want more collaboration. And finally, I'm so pleased that the political community is here as well. Thank you guys, because we want to work with you. We have no other motivation than to work for the greater good of Guernsey. So we can be a reliable partner and basically, hopefully, all go in the same direction. So thank you very much and enjoy your lunch. Thank you.